Oh, she was a slow one. I got to see Cattle Decapitation, and I'm so excited. Cattle Decapitation is on tour right now, and last night got to see them. If you see me looking down, I did print out my notes because, girl, I'm tired, and I made coffee and wrote down my notes. It's their Terracite, their tour to promote Terracite. If you're not familiar with them, they're a band from San Diego, California. They're prog death metal / grindcore. Their openers, they had Castrator. That was the first one. They are a kind of newer band to the scene, New York death metal, all female basically. Lead singer looks like Fernanda from Crypta. She was I'm gonna butcher this name, Sugabog. Magpie just called them Saggy Nutsack. Like I said, they're the second opener. They're from Columbus, Ohio. They're death metal. And then Immolation was the opener / headliner, bigger act, New York death metal, if you're familiar with them. And then, of course, Cattle Decap closing the show. If you're a fan of Crypta, you should listen to Castrator. Like, I got the same vibes. Her voice was really great. Her stage presence was great. It was hot to see a chick drummer. I like seeing women on the drum kit. I don't know. It's cool. I liked it. Really great breakdowns, energy, and vocals. I loved the vibe. I have not heard their one record, so they have one actual album out. I did buy it, and I will show it to you. The record is called Defiled in Oblivion. It's their only album, like I mentioned, came out July 22nd of last year in 2022 on Dark Descent Records, so that's kind of mostly what they were playing and touring for this performance. The next band was Sugabog. This was a band that I mostly heard while I was in the merch line, because this merch line was nutty buddies for Cattle. Not as long as the one from Cannibal Corpse. Although they're death metal, they have more of this kind of like groove metal, new metal, kind of hip hop vibe. And I think that might just be because the subwoofer for the speakers during their set was like activated. Both delicious and groovy, and I enjoyed it. I like bass. Magpie was like, it's kind of like this hip-hoppy yo-yo ma type thing. That's what he said. That's his quote. Immolation. I've been sleeping on them, girl. Yeah, I just remember there really only being like one or two songs at the end of their set that were kind of duds for me. The energy on stage was really great, and it was just fun. Their sound is fire. If you have an opportunity to see Immolation, you need to go see Immolation. And honestly, they might be one of my favorite death metal bands that I've listened to this year. That's based on their live sound, because I have not heard anything from Immolation. I'm really, really hoping that their recorded stuff lives up to the expectations of their live sound. Ross, who's the lead singer and the bass player of this band, he's also one of the last like founding members of Immolation. He's great. I didn't realize how long his hair was. Like, Ross might have the longest hair in the game, dude. It's past his ass, girl. Like, he looks like a male version of like the Little Mermaid with that hair, like Tarzan. Like, he was like Greek god metalhead with that hair, and it was like flowing like Fabio on stage. Okay, let's get into Cattle Decap. I have some things to kind of talk about with them. First, I want to say I was front row. Girl, I pushed my way there. I pissed off a girl that was shorter than me, and I was like, you're not getting in my way of seeing Travis. I was at the barrier, touching the barrier. I have seen Cattle Decap one other time. This was last December in Los Angeles. It was a massive lineup. I'm only plugging it because it was Cattle who opened, and they were doing such short sets because the whole show got like trimmed. I guess they started super late, so Cattle got muffed, dude. They only did 4 songs for that show. For an opening band to Obituary, Carcass, and Amon Amarth, who were the headliners. So this was a really great experience because it's a smaller venue, close up. I was like, I want to be close up for this. Obviously, if you saw one of my previous videos on my predictions for the Terracite tour, I wanted them to play Solastalgia. They effing played Solastalgia. I was kind of hoping that they would, and then they released the music video for it like a week ago, and I was like, yeah, they're gonna put it in their set list. As far as Travis Ryan, he was mesmerizing, and that is the best way to describe it because his stage presence is out of this world. The way he performs is truly mesmerizing. Like, I felt like most of the people in the front row were just kind of in awe because he really gets into it. As a singer performer myself, I like to see how Travis freaking does the stuff he does vocally, and like where he places it, and like what he does with his jaw and tongue and stuff like that. And it's just kind of weird. Sometimes he would like land some of these goblin screams and stick his tongue out like this, and then like and like I don't know, it's just interesting to watch him. I want to make a strong warning to people who are interested in going to this tour. If you are sensitive at all to strobe lights, or you're epileptic, which at that point you probably already know not to go to metal shows, skip Cattle Decap set because it had really, really intense strobe lights. And I'm not sensitive to those, but this was so noticeable and so overwhelming in a lot of ways that like when I left the show, I was like I feel a little a little anxious, and Magpie was getting a headache by the end of the set. I didn't really notice it until about a third way through, but it's really bad. It's really, really bad. Yeah, they were very much nuts with the strobe lights, and I mean like full on blinky, blinky, blinking. Like it's so bad, I have to put an epileptic warning in my actual video. I'm only warning you because if you are sensitive to that, skip their set. It really wasn't noticeable for any of the other people. Flashing lights, like I said, I'm not sensitive to it. And I noticed that people around me were like closing their eyes and putting their heads down and still trying to headbang, but I had to focus on like neon tape on the little platform that was in front of Travis, because they put a little platform there so he could stand on it or kneel on it or whatever, and they had neon tape on the corners, and I just had to focus on that when they would overdo the strobe light. Okay, so why was the vibe different for this show? As I was watching them, I was like, this doesn't feel like Cattle Decap. This feels like the Travis Ryan show. Travis didn't really interact with any of the other members that were in the band performing. Before their show started, I thought the sound guys were coming up onto the stage and like diddling with the instruments. And then when the show started, those same guys came back on stage, and I was like, why are the sound guys getting the instruments ready? Like, I thought the Cattle Decapitation was like performing. And then I was like, oh my God, these are the guys for the band? Like, it just, they weren't very, maybe that's like rude. I don't know. But it was like, I was like, maybe it's just like they weren't memorable or something. I don't know. The other bandmates didn't have any mics, which not a huge deal because obviously Travis Ryan is like the main vocalist, the main attraction. We saw that with Immolation, although Ross was playing bass as well. We saw that with Sanguis the Nutsack. The same thing with Castrator. Not a big deal, but it definitely felt like the Travis Ryan show, not Cattle Decapitation as a whole. You know, like Travis Ryan is the face of Cattle Decap. Makes sense, he's the lead singer. I guess I just never realized that until I got to see them this way, because I thought Cattle Decapitation was kind of like how I view Immolation, you know, as like a band, like all of these people together, or like how you view Dying Fetus. It's like all these three people together. The way that this show kind of presented itself for Cattle was like Will Ramos is the face of Lorna Shore, or how Adam Levine is the face of Maroon 5. Not necessarily a bad thing, and it could be super nitpicky, but that was just an observation that I had, and I don't know how to feel about it. I also may not be explaining it very well because I'm not exactly sure how to like pinpoint what that is. Either way, Travis was carrying this whole performance. I was front row, so the sound quality for his vocals especially was terrible for the Diamond Ballroom. That's gonna be a later suggestion of mine. Like if you're gonna see Cattle and you want a decent sound, get a little further back than just front row. Travis's vocals, they were a bit buried in the mix, especially his really low gutturals. You could hear a little bit of his like higher goblin screams, but it was just, you know, and I expected that. So it's not like I expected to have like the best sound quality up front, because I know how these venues work. If you're eating, you might want to mute me for a second. So Travis did some gross things on stage, which I am going to mention, but like I said, if you're eating, you might want to mute it for like a minute. I'll talk about it briefly. It's kind of commonplace where metal singers will like spit on the floor. So Travis was doing this thing where he was spitting like a loogie, or like just spitting up into the air, and then he would catch it. Like it was kind of like playing yo-yo with his own spit. I was like, okay, that's kind of gross. He did this a few times, and then this one time he caught it and like snorted it back up into his nose like he was getting high, and then he would just like get off the podium. He blew out one of his nostrils, like literally held out one of his nostrils and like blew out onto like the stage floor, and I was like, That's disgusting. I don't know why he would do that. I don't know why. I feel sorry for the people that have to clean up after some of these metal shows. You don't need to be blowing snot rockets onto the floor. I'm not judging him. This is just purely an observation, which it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, but these are literally just me listing my observations. The last 2 albums of Cattle Decaps are concept records. That can sometimes be very hard to perform, which you wouldn't think it would be, but there's story, it's audible storytelling with those things. So it can be difficult to tell that story in a live setting. I don't know how well they translated live. I think that they still sound good, but personally, I feel like I would have really liked to see a little bit more visual stuff. Now, they did use interludes from both Death Atlas and Terracite. I felt like that was good. But really, the only thing visually that they offered for the actual show experience was the strobe lights. So they had a massive Terracite flag behind them, which I thought was cool. But I feel like it'd be kind of cool to have something else. And maybe they just couldn't fit it because it is a little bit, like I said, of a smaller venue, but I feel like they could have done just a little bit more visually. Rating this tour as a whole, I would give this a solid 8.5 out of 10 for musical performance, sound quality, and lineup. I think Immolation killed it, and I think that they sounded better than Cattle, in my opinion, at least just from where I was standing. I also think both the openers, Castrator and Sanguis Sugabog, were great and helped keep the energy up for the headliners. When it comes to the Diamond Ballroom, if you're going to go see this tour in a venue that's around the size, like I said, of the Diamond Ballroom, I'm giving this tour for venues that small a 7.5 out of 10 because of the strobe lights and from specifically where I was standing front row. So if you are wanting to get good sound from Cattle, stand a little bit further back, but if you know the venue that you're going to go and see them at and you know how it works front row, then this probably doesn't apply to you. But if it's your first time, I'd stand a little further back because, like I said, couldn't really hear Travis's vocals very well. I'm going to keep talking about them because they were bad. They were really, really bad, and I just want y'all to be safe. And I may be an overbearing mama, and it may not be that big of a deal, but it was very noticeable. They very much overdid it. Just be prepared if you are going to see them. Specifically, it's like a 7.5 depending on the venue. I'm thinking it might not have been bad if it was in an arena, but if you're seeing them in a smaller venue, it's gonna be bad. Okay, so first we're starting off with Castrator. Some of these things are things that Magpie also bought, but he was like, yeah, let's show off everything. So I bought some stuff, girl, but so did he. So anyway, Castrator, that's the first kind of opener for the main lineup. This is their debut, or, you know, their first full-length record. I did get it signed by the singer. That's what that silver mark is. So she signed it. She actually didn't sign the CD. Magpie insisted, and it is upside down. And I may or may not have broken the CD case trying to open it. If you're ever going to get a CD signed, he said to have them sign the actual booklet. And best advice I can give you that's really worked for us, if you want stuff to be signed at a show without having to really pay for it, buy your own Sharpies. So buy like the metallic ones. Like we bought the metallic ones. You could just do a black one or whatever color you want. Buy those, bring them to the show. And then the best thing to do is hang out around the merch table, especially for like the openers and stuff like that. You'd be surprised like what bands might actually come up to the merch table to say hi. Like I wouldn't expect Cattle to do it, but Exhumed went up to the merch table the last time we were at the Diamond Ballroom and we saw them, and Magpie got every single signature from the Exhumed people, and I got a photo from one of their guitarists and actually got to talk to their lead singer Matt, and it was awesome. So definitely, if you don't already know, the merch table is where it is. I love how openers always go to the merch stands to sign things. Yes. And I got to meet the lead singer for Castrator, and I was, I think the issue was probably with the wide range of vocals with CD, with Cattle Decap versus Immolation, which was more consistent in tone throughout versus a mix of highs and lows. This could also be because Cattle Decap has more deathcore elements in their newer record too, because there were definitely some deathcore fans there. Definitely some new metal deathcore fans. I mean, there were people wearing like Lorna Shore stuff, Slapnut stuff, like even the girl that I cut off, like her friend asked her, "What's the best show you've seen all year?" And she was like, "Slipknot." That was their CD that was signed. And then Magpie got the cassette, which of the same album. So he got the cassette of the same album, and he did get it signed. We just don't know if the gold marker, I think it just needs a little bit more time. But you can kind of see the gold signature-ish. Sorry for the ring light. It's kind of on there, but not really. She did sign this one, though. And then he bought a pin. Castrator pin. That is right. He also bought this cattle pin, which I'll take out the bag. And then they went a little more mainstream with their sound with Terracite, which is fine. I still think Death Atlas is superior. Anyway, Magpie also got the Immolation CD. So you got this, and this is their Providence record. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what record in their discography this is. I have not listened to anything from Immolation yet, and yeah. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if this is like their most recent record or a different record in their discography, but I'm excited to dive into it. I got this. Signed by all members. I wanted to get this record, even though I don't think it's as good as Death Atlas. I was already contemplating buying the CD anyway, because of Soul Nostalgia. This was like $15. So roughly $15 US for like the signed stuff. I think the CD from Castrator was like $16, and then the Castrator shirt, which I am going to show you, the Castrator stuff was a lot cheaper than anything else, which kind of makes sense because they're newer. This is the back. You probably already have seen that. I was contemplating getting a zip-up hoodie with the Terracite cockroach on the back, but I was like, I kind of want to get a Death Atlas one. Plus the hoodie itself was $55 US, so I was like, I can always buy that later. You know, I was contemplating like, well, anything that I see right now, I'm going to see if I can buy later. Like, let me buy the stuff that I think is going to be collectible, you know, better stuff, one of a kind stuff that you get at a show, you know. That's how you should always think about when you go to a show. Be like, what can I get that's like kind of one of a kind that I probably won't be able to buy in like 6 months to a year from now. Hoodies are pretty expensive. They were $55 at the show. Okay, so the next thing Magpie got was a flag from Immolation. So that's the Immolation flag. I think they're like $30. So this is, yeah, Immolation flag. Super, super nice quality. A little translucent, which I kind of like. Yeah, it was $30 for the flag. This is my first Cattle Decap t-shirt. Optimism is a lack of information. I had to get my tour shirt. So this was their tour shirt. This was, I think, $30. And so this was what they had on the podium on the stage. They had two, one on each side. I also got the Castrator shirt, which like I mentioned a little earlier, this was about $20 US. This is of their first record. Tour dates. This is Magpies. Their tour shirt for this. I was wondering where this shirt was. So, like I said, we bought this in Los Angeles last December. White, bring back the plague. Don't buzz out on me, girl. The reason why I mention that is because now they made a black version instead. Matching, and it says tremble before me on the side, for I am the angel of death. So I'm wondering, yeah, it's the same on this side. So it's the exact same t-shirt, but just black. Now they did have a white t-shirt, but it's not this color. It's like true white pretty much, which I thought it was more off-white online when we were looking at merch, but it's not really. And I was like, eh. I'm excited to listen to this Castrator record. I'm excited to listen to the Immolation record, rock some more of this merch. And then at the show, I did wear my Hell's Headbangers t-shirt. So I placed an order with J-Dog from Hell's Headbangers for my B vinyl. And I put in there, because you can write a note, and I like asked him a question for his videos and whatever. And he sent me a free shirt. So I repped it for the video. So it was fun.